Yes, H.
Yes, man.
Yes. What we have going today? What we talking about today?
Well, the history of Trelawny in Jamaica.
The history of Trelawny in Jamaica.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the history of Trelawny. Where did
Trelawny,
Trelawny get his name? That's not the first question I'm should ask. Where did the name Trelawny?
Trelawny got its name from a British aristocratic family. Right? They were called Trelawny, but spelt instead of the Y at the end, they were spelt with an E at the end. The aristocrats, barons, and earls, landowners in Cornwall, England.
Oh, so that where the name Trelawny comes from?
Yes, it's still there. It's still Falmouth, the capital of Trelawny in Jamaica.
Yeah.
There's still Falmouth in Cornwall today.
In the UK.
In the UK, I think it's the southwestern England, Cornwall.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, why did you think they give them that the name? Do you think it's because of the whole involvement of the why the whole place got this yeah, like you were saying?
No, well, it was named Trelawny after Englishman, Sir William Trelawny, who was a sixth baronet or Earl of Falmouth, Cornwall.
In the UK.
In the UK. But this man, he was the governor of all of Jamaica from 1722 up until 1777 when he died.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, him did I run the place basically?
Yes, he was the governor of the whole of Jamaica. But his base in Jamaica was in what we now call Trelawny.
Okay, and that's why they named the town after him.
That's right.
But tell me a bit more about the history of Trelawny.
Well, before the British, before the British went over to Jamaica, well, there was the Spanish and other countries over there, who really they had slaves, but they had some kind of relationship with the people on the island of Jamaica. Like so, but then eventually the British come along and I won't say that they run the Spanish, right? Because the Spanish spent so much time on the island, they did not really believe there was any resources on the island. So they'd already let many of their troops go to other places in the Caribbean, in the West Indies, right? So by the time the British arrived with their forces, it was like an easy takeover to get rid of the Spanish of the island.
Is the Spanish so-called what they call the Spaniards back in Jamaica? Because we used to hear about the Spaniards, which we've got on the, I think it's on the money or on the coin.
Well, I don't know about that, but we've got Spanish Town in Jamaica, and I think we've got other places. I don't know. I'm not sure about Old Harbour, but you've got places like Spanish Town that the Spanish named whilst they were in Jamaica.
So the Spanish was the first person there.
Yes, but the Spanish was there, but also the French as well. And I'm not sure, and maybe the Portuguese, because they were sailing all around them sides, looking for resources or land, like Columbus had so-called discovered the Americas.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. When Columbus went there, was these men already there?
No, Columbus was before them. Columbus was in the late 1400s. These were. Or the British interjection wasn't until 1655.
So that was the British. So that means the Spanish would be within between 14 and 16 then, because they would be before the British.
Yeah, the Spanish were already there. They already had from Columbus in the 1490s, right the way up to the 1600s. The Spanish, the Portuguese, and I think some French as well was over there already.
But was there any slavery at that time?
Well, yes, but I believe that the slaves that the Spanish had over there, even though they were slaves, they had kind of like a better time being slaves under the Spanish.
And how do you explain that? When you say a better time?
Well, a better time compared to when the British came in 1655, because that was untold brutality that the British came with, right? So whatever arrangement they had, the people on the island had with the Spanish before, right? Well, that no longer thinking, because it was the British introduced all the punishment, all the hard labor and everything.
Yeah, but
In other words, if the ones that were there beforehand, they had certain things that they could do freely. Even though they were working for the Spanish, they had certain freedoms that they went as soon as the British come in 1655.
British take all that away.
They took it all the way.
But don't you think that was because the British had a different agenda, because there was more on like a mass produce whatever, because that was all about the cane and the cotton and
Yes, because in Britain they heard about this thing, or they had a sample from somebody. I don't know if it was Walter Raleigh or whoever it was, had a sample that the island had holy but sugar, and then what else was there? They knew of resort and for the cotton, but they knew of resources that the Spanish didn't tap into.
Yes, that's what
Right,
I'm saying.
yeah.
Because that's what would have caused them to gone there with that like urgency, trying to get rid of the Spanish them and trying to take over, and then implementing them own,
Yes.
wickedness. Yeah.
Maybe because the British, the Spanish, and the Portuguese, they had to go on new adventures and sail. That's how Columbus thought he was going to India, and then they bumped into the West Indies and the Americas, because he thought he was sailing to India, because at that time, who was it now? It was it may have been. It was one of them. Either the Mongols had invaded Europe.
Yeah.
So they couldn't really sail anywhere. Where they had to go look for fresh pastures.
But do you think Columbus really did discover Jamaica?
No, because you can't discover something that where people are already living.
So who was that the day before Columbus? Because you said in the 1400 to 16 was the Spanish. And
Yes.
then after the Spanish, Columbus discovered it in 1600, he said.
No, Columbus 1490s.
1490s, Columbus discovered, and then the Spanish came after. So who was there before Columbus discovered it? When he went Columbus?
In where the Americas or Jamaica.
No, Jamaica.
Well, the people that were there already, right? Well, there's already people there. Maybe the Taino Indians, the Arawaks.
Oh,
right.
Those are the Indians we are talking about, the Arawaks.
Arawak, yes,
Indians.
yeah. They were already native there. They was already native there. So when Columbus went over and he discovered, he couldn't have discovered if there's people already there on the island. And there's places like Cuba as well, where there's a whole heap of the islanders that were going from Cuba to Jamaica to the other islands around there. There's already Taino Indians, Arawak Indians were already there.
So what's the difference between Taino Indians and Arawak Indians? Because I only know about the Arawak Indians, which was the one that they said them that built the flat bridge. Because like I was telling you before, you have them on the I think the 50 pence, 50 cent piece. Yeah. So we know about the Spaniards or whatever, Arawaks is there. Yeah.
Well, I've read about the Taino Indians and their origin, and I can't really catch it right now. What I read up on it, but they was already there. Taino and Arawak.
So would it be fair to say the Arawaks was the first people in Jamaica?
Yes. Well, no. The Arawaks or the Taino.
Well, both the same. Yeah. So the Indians.
But remember the Taino. That name was given to them. The Taino was given to them by the Portuguese. So I can't really say who what tribe of people they were before they were given this name.
Okay. So that name was given by the Portuguese.
Yes, and if you take America, the discovery of the Americas by Columbus, for example, as we know already, by things like pyramids and things and sculptures that were there that are older than, because Egypt has some pyramids that are 12,500 years, but in the Americas, Mexico, all these places, they've got the same things older than the ones in Egypt. And these are figurines of black people with big nose, broad lips, and they're clearly black people. So people was already there in the Americas and the West Indies. So when they started the transatlantic slave trade, now the reason why they took hot irons and branded whoever they captured from West Africa was to say, just like you got a farmer brands his cattle, so this means this is come from West Africa, this is ours, where there's so that they don't mix up between the ones that were indigenous already in the Americas.
Okay.
Right? Which spoke different languages anyway. Spoke different languages, but then it's not like the Portuguese and the first people to bring black people over to the Americas and the Caribbean and Europe. It's not like they understood. They understood what language we were speaking, but the indigenous that were already in the Americas, they already had several different tribes and several different tongues, languages.
So go back to Trelawny now, yeah, cause that's where we start, yeah. So you was telling us a bit about Trelawny now and the history of Trelawny. So give us a bit more rundown and cause you said you read a bit on the history. Yeah. So what else have you got to add to the history? What you were saying?
Well, a lot of we Jamaicans in particular have this man, this British aristocrat, Sir William Trelawny, to be thankful, because this man was the governor of Jamaica, and he was there on the ground. He could see how things was going. Now he begged, pleaded, implored King George II of England, right? Because what happened now is, like, they used to bring in slaves from West Africa. Now there's a group of slaves, maybe a couple of hundred, that overpowered their captors at sea, right? So this group that overpowered their captives at sea, they were never taken as, yes, they came from West Africa, but they were taken as slaves, but they never knew what it was like to be a slave, because they overpowered their captors at sea. Now today in Jamaica, Queen Nanny is still on the $500 note. Now she was one of these that overpowered the captors, right? And when they got onto the island we call Jamaica, well, they fought guerrilla warfare against the British, and it was hot. It was an intense fighting, but the British didn't know how to deal with Queen Nanny and her brother Cujo, right? They didn't know how to deal with them. They couldn't, because they paint the faces, right, or camouflage against the greenery, the trees, the grass, and ambush. This was happening regularly. So Sir William Trelawny was there on the ground. He could see the amount of casualties that the English army was taking. So we have this man to thank, really, because he pleaded with King George II, saying they cannot win. Come to some kind of arrangement with these people. And obviously these are the people that we call the Maroons, right? Queen Nanny, she controlled more or less what you call Eastern Jamaica, and Cujo brother controlled Western Jamaica. And in the end, the King George II had to listen to who he'd installed as the governor of the island of Jamaica.
So it's Trelawny. It was Mr. Trelawny,
Yes, Sir William Trelawny, right? And eventually, after the two Maroon Wars, the treaty was signed. And I can't really remember what year the treaty was. 1738. The treaty was signed, and it's still, if you can Google it, right? Because this is one of the most terrible defeats in British Army history. Yes, it is.
But did Cujo and Nanny, did they had weapons at the time? because with Britain and Britain would have had
Yes,
like stuff that them.
they'd have had the British would have had cannon. They would have had guns in around in the 1700s. That's true.
Yeah.
But what you have to remember is that how they used to deal with how guns used to work them days is that you had to go on. It took you 10, 15. From you shoot your gun once, it's going to take you another 10, 15 minutes for the gun to cool down, for you to put the powder in, for you to reload. And by that time, they've been ambushed because the same tactics that Queen Nanny and Cujo used to defeat the British. And if you go on the internet and Google the Maroon Wars, you'll see yourself. It's and the reason why I went into this is because when I was, I think 16, 17, I headed into a library. Because I used to do that, and then just to educate myself and start looking in a book. And I went in the Oxford Dictionary. The Oxford Dictionary, you know what that is, isn't it?
Yeah, man, of course.
Right?
Man.
And I decided, because I was always looking for wars and everything like that, but I decided, let me just look through the word Jamaica. And I was so shocked, my eyes went squint blacks, right? Because you know what it said in the Oxford Dictionary? It said, Jamaican, stubborn race. In the Oxford Dictionary. Before I come out, this is when I was 16, I should have come out, because I don't think it's allowed these days, but I should have come out and double check to see if that's still in there. And I was looking at this thing, and I thought, how could this is the only country in the world, and this one explains to you is the two defeats in the Maroon Wars, because the Maroons didn't accept the invaders, right? And they were forced, and no school will teach your children that in the curriculum, but the greed of the seed of Japheth is there for all to see, because it's called the internet, so you can't hide. The devil can't hide. You go on the internet, and even, like, I've looked at the Constitution of America, where black people are seen as 3/5 of livestock, so the animals, right? And then in the Constitution of Jamaica, what did I see in the Constitution? But you could see all of this, all the two. If you look for the Constitution of Jamaica, you can go on the internet and you could see there in black and white yourselves what the British were forced to sign. And to this very day, that deal still stands today. Because over the years, because I always follow what's going on in Jamaica, right? And I know PJ Patterson. And some other prime ministers of Jamaica in the past, when it comes to this topic, there is no, because the Maroons have four state halls in Jamaica, right? Scots Hall in Kingston, Maroon Town or Compound Town in St. Elizabeth. St. Elizabeth, right? Cockpit Country, yes, right? And then one in St. James.
Have they got one in St. Thomas?
I don't know where the other one is. It's called Moortown.
I think it might be in St. Thomas.
Right.
It might be.
So and you can check this out yourselves. To this very day, there is no Jamaican Prime Minister that will charge the Maroons for that land.
Yeah, but now there's a bit of issue going on now with this Prime Minister, because I'm not sure if it's him, Andrew Holness, that signed some deal. I was the Prime Minister before him, which was Portia Simpson, that signed the deal that got the bauxite company. You know what bauxite is? Yeah, them people that does the mining for the aluminum and whatever, yeah. So basically, they are now digging out all the Maroon land, yeah. So now, I think it was last week, there was a thing in the news where the Maroon has filed a case against the government, suing the government now, yeah, for what they did in the cockpit thing.
Right. Well, because over the years I've followed this, and I know I've listened to prime ministers of Jamaica saying they will never charge the Maroons for their land.
Yeah, but this one has now intervened. They've gone now. So I was watching this documentary on that same Maroon program and Maroon topic, should I say? Yeah, and I've realized that they was showing you that even they've made some borders. So like, for example, they would say, okay, the government would mark this border and says, listen, you're not allowed to mine beyond here. But then the mining was going on beyond those lines. You understand me? And people living in the area, they was all getting affected by the dust and all that. And basically, you know, with it being the Maroon, the land is preserved.
That's right.
It's supposed to be preserved. So that's the main issue that they was complaining about. So I don't know, because everything changes these days, innit, when it comes to the law and the rules and regulations. You know, it just all takes.
Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know this was happening.
But now, right now, there's an issue going on right now as we speak about this land, this very land. But you're right, there hasn't been any prime minister before and that's upset the Maroon community.
That's right.
Because there was always, because they said that sovereignty or whatever that means. Yeah. Sovereignty. Yeah, I don't know what the meaning of it is, but it's something the Maroon claims.
Yes, well, that means. So if sovereignty means that you are regal, you are royal, so you have as much rights to that land or territory as the Queen has to hers. Okay. Or any king or queen, it's a sovereign. So in your sovereignty, if that's recognized, that's I mean, they don't have a king because they have a colonial, innit?
Right? A chief,
right? So, but it's still as good as a king or a queen.
Yes, it is.
Right? It's the same thing.
Yeah. Right? But the government apparently he don't seems to, because I heard a clip where the government, the prime minister himself says there is no indigenous people in Jamaica. So basically what he was trying to say, there was no one who's got sovereignty over anyone else in Jamaica, and that would include the Maroons. So that's why he was trying to say the land or whatever decision they made on the land, it wasn't any difference from anywhere else in the country, but the Maroons wasn't having it. Because the Maroons are, like you said, the Maroons. And they've proved they've been signed, everything.
They have the documentation.
Of proving this, and like I said, there is no other government that has crossed that line in the past. But this one seems to have gone over boundaries now and taking the people them land off them now.
Well, I'm surprised Andrew Holness is saying that, because so in effect what you're saying there is that so whoever claims to have discovered the West Indies or the Americans, that means he's acknowledging, or he's trying to say to you there was nobody there.
Well, basically, he's trying to respect no one else's sovereignty, basically, because if those are the only indigenous people left in Jamaica, why would it be that you're not preserving these people? Why would you not be preserving their history?
But you know why Holness is probably doing that though, right? Is because remember, right? Jamaicans being sold off to non-Jamaicans.
I know.
Right. So because remember, Buju Banton come from America, right? And he's seen all this. So really, it's no surprise that if Andrew Holness says that, because that means that he's trying to say nobody has the right to that land because it's for sale.
But that's what he's trying to say. It's for sale, but it is not for sale, because like you was just pointing out, because you've read this in history. You know what I mean? Because it's there.
Yeah, it's there for everybody.
Exactly to read. So therefore, at the end of the day, why would him be the only one who is fighting this and saying it's not right? So hence why now the chief now has bring a case forward against the government. But the question is now, can they win? You know, and if they win, will they get paid? And if they get paid, how long will it take for them to get paid?
Will who win?
The Maroons. Will they win the case against the government?
Well, if they're taking the case to the government, I believe they'll win, because remember, this is more than more than 250 years legal documentation, right? The land belongs to them, right? And anybody that came before or since, right, has respected that. So what has changed?
It's a big thing for me. Is like who if they win, when will they get the money? And if they get the money, and when they get the money, how long will it take them to get that money? And when they get that money, if they get that money,
Jamaica have no money.
But this is what I'm trying to explain to you, innit? So that's what I'm saying to you, yeah? It's exactly my point. So if they get that money, and when they get that money, who exactly will benefit from this money? You understand? Because the Maroons are not one people, it's not a couple of people.
That's right.
It's a whole set of people that lives in a district, yeah, that class themselves as Maroon.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm saying if this money, whatever the money is, comes forward, you know what I mean? How would they know how much to give to each person? How would everyone know? Because we know Jamaica is corrupt, regardless when it comes to whoever you are. You understand what I'm saying to you? You will be greedy. Don't matter if you're Maroons, whatever you are, you're Jamaican. Just remember that. Because from your Jamaican, you're gonna know that. Listen, you're gonna want to squeeze yourself. So you understand what I'm saying to you? I'm not saying every Jamaican is like that, because there's principle.
But I don't know, you know, blacks, because with the Maroons now, right? Because how what I've seen over the years anyway, how they operate, how they operate now is like they've got a good system.
They have.
Right?
They have.
They've got a good system. I'm not good with the words to say what I really mean, but they've got a good method of system. Because if you want to go anywhere where the Maroons are, and you want to inquire about something, you will be passed from A to B to C.
Yes.
Eventually,
Yes.
eventually, if you feel like seeing you, the Colonial will see you.
Yeah.
So that is a good.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole community.
It's just that being in Africa, isn't it?
Yeah,
Even though I've never been in Africa, but you see the same thing.
Yeah, it's
you know, you
same
pass
system.
to that one, then
Yes.
pass to that one. Like you said, if the chief,
And nobody will answer.
no one will answer.
Yeah.
But if the chief feel like he wants to speak to you, then he will identify himself.
So they've got, so the word I'm looking for is structure. They've got they've got a good structure in place. So maybe if number one, the first thing would be to make sure that they preserve that land, right? Secondly, if they're going to get any money, right, then maybe it'll be distributed amongst the community by the chief or whatever structure they've got in place.
Yes.
And by the way, everybody, it's 15th of January. Every January, right across Jamaica, is National Maroon Day.
15th of January.
15th of January, every year.
Every year.
Yes, yeah. Because the big parties, celebrations, and like what we could call carnivals going on.
Yeah.
I'm yet to even go to one of them, because I've been aiming to get over there in January, but I don't normally go January.
Yeah. So the Maroons, yeah.
Yeah, the Maroons are people that affects us all. I mean, blacks born in Jamaica, me born in England, but still it affects all of it, because if not for the Maroons, if not for the fight of the Maroons, right? Well, it would be we'd have been in some kind of horrendous situation in regards to the slavery, the bondage, and what was asked of our people, right? From the British. And all that they went over there for in the first place, because they were fleeing from other wars in Europe, and they heard the rumor about there's a whole heap of sugar on the island. There's cotton as well, right? And there's other things I can't remember. But we all a big shout out to the Maroons.
The coffee.
Yeah.
There's loads of stuff in Jamaica, in it, that other countries benefit from, and that's why they always, you know, have some form of interest in Jamaica, one way or another, over the years. You know, it's not been just now. You know what I mean? Even now they're trying to, even with the Rastafarians, them growing up with the weed and having the history, the problems with the weed. Then, if you look now, it's different companies come from outside Jamaica, coming inside Jamaica, and they are getting all those benefits from the system out there, where other people not getting it out there, that people's been through the struggles. You know what I mean?
And another thing about the Maroons, because we've got in West Jamaica, we've got a place called Runaway Bay. Now, what the Maroons used to do, because the British couldn't handle them at all, this new breed of warfare, jungle warfare, guerrilla warfare, sorry, right? And then they paint up the faces, and then they wear garments that camouflage them against the grass or the bushes, and then just hijack them. But Runaway Bay now, what happened now is because the slaves that Britain and some other countries, I think France, did have, what happened is that they broke free, or the Maroons broke them free, and they used to run up into the hills and go and join up with the Maroons. So the Maroon forces become much enlarged, right? That's another thing.
So the Maroon themselves wasn't slaves.
No. There was never and this good point now, Black. So this is what I forgot about because I was still fighting with my conscience when I went to the library and seen how could you have a country and call the whole country a stubborn race? But and this is why, because they could never swallow that defeat, right? But you research it yourself and then you'll see how much it was. And we have Sir William Trelawny to thank because he recognized that it didn't matter how many troops King George II would send, right? Because it's a bit like America with Vietnam and Russia with Afghanistan, because the terrain. Because where I know I've seen this form of tactic is hit and run up into the hills. It's throughout the Book of Maccabees. You know that the same tactic, hit and run and go and run out up into the hills, right? Because it's very difficult
to find them.
Yes, because the terrain. We all know that Jamaica's got places where the terrain is not where you would want to send in the 1700s send an army, right? Because it's like they become cannon fodder because you're trying to chase people that are on a lick on run, going high up into the hills and the mountains, right? And you're going uphill. They can just pick you off because when you said, well, the British had guns and this, that, and the other, yes, but what the Maroons did, they had what they knew. Because remember, they've been taken from West Africa. They made, they remember the whole heap of wood in Jamaica, right? They just made their weapons from whatever they had, and then if anything, if they captured some of the English army, then they'd take what they had.
Right. So yeah, man, but that had
Can't
history.
beat the Maroons.
Yeah, so that had history about the Maroons today. So please like, subscribe and share, yeah? So the Maroons them are the original Jamaicans, and if you know that, recognize that, I appreciate that. And Andrew Wellness needs to remember this, give the Maroon them sovereignty back and make sure so the man them have them thing back. You get me, yeah? Because I don't know who is you to change the system. You understand, the law was there, like I said, age, what, 250 years before.
Yes, 1738 was when the treaty was signed.
Exactly. So
the two Maroon wars.
Yeah, so who is you now to come and think that? You see me? Yeah, you see me? Yeah, who is you to come now and change it? Yeah, you can't change the thing. You see me? Yeah. Yeah, man. Like and subscribe. Bless.